I forgot how squishy they are. I'm free now.
Hello there everybody, thank you for joining us in yet another marvelous video. With Netflix having dropped the second season of the critically acclaimed series Arcane recently, we're hyped to share with you all there is to know about the wonderful universe in which the story is set. Our video today shall take us far beyond the borders of Piltover and into the wider world of Arcane in League of Legends. The world of Runeterra, as it is called, is one that is rife with magic and machines and all manners of fantastical creatures that call it their home. From the steampunk themes of Piltover to the shattered realm tainted by foul sorcery of the Shadow Isles, there are a variety of fantastical elements that can be seen within Runeterra, which provides a great setting for storytelling. The diversity is what truly makes this world unique and different from other fantasy settings, which traditionally only have a single setting. Like any other fantasy world, Runeterra has its share of good, evil, and morally gray characters that dwell in it. The conflict between gods and goddesses against demons and evil beings for supremacy raises on it in this beautifully crafted universe. While there are benevolent forces in this world, there are also malevolent entities that are afoot, as we've seen from Arcane. This world is no place for the faint of heart, and the stories set in Runeterra do deal with several mature themes like violence and abuse, meaning that they also house some of the most evil and heinous characters to ever exist. Our aim today is to introduce you to 5 of these individuals whose mere existence is a bane to all sentient creatures that live in this world, having committed crimes or acts that can make the toughest of you squirm with discomfort. Some of these characters we've had seen in Arcane, while others you might have never heard of, depending on whether you're a fan of the games by Riot that are based in this universe. Regardless of whether you're a lorehead or a person whose interest in this world has been piqued by Arcane, we've got you covered. So join us now as we take you on a journey through some of the darkest places in Runeterra to engage with the most twisted and vile minds to ever inhabit this fantastical realm. Before we go into explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means an awful lot. Thank you, and let's begin.
Fight, flee, it will make no difference.
Mordekaiser, the Iron Revenant. In a time now lost to memory, there once existed a fierce warlord the likes of Runeterra had never seen since. His name was Shaunal, and all those who lived during that time feared his name, for nation after nation fell under his blade, until he had created an empire forged with the blood of his fallen adversaries and their kin. Despite his great but terrible deeds, there was one thing that even this mighty warrior could not conquer, and that was death. Shaunal, however, embraced it, as he believed that through his conquest and deeds, he had earned himself a place in the Golden Stable, or the Hall of Bones, which is the universe's version of the Nordic Valhalla. He firmly believed that he would be raised into divinity from there and take his place amongst the gods, but little did he know what truly awaited him. Instead of the Golden Stable or the company of divine beings, Shaunal found himself floating in a gray and dull spirit realm where spirits would occasionally pass by before they embarked on their final resting place or were lost. Feeling betrayed and angered by the fact that all of the blood he had shed and conquests he had achieved were not enough for him to receive immortality and become a god himself, Shaunal, through sheer force of will, refused to fade away into nothingness or move on like the rest of the spirits in this realm. Refusing to accept his fate of being destined to stay trapped in this oblivion, tormented by endless whispers from nameless, spaceless things. As he lingered for what seemed to be aeons in this spirit realm, he slowly began to comprehend the whispers that tormented him. He learned that the language that these whispers were being spoken in was one that was unknown to any mortal, for it was the language of the damned, also known as Ochun. Having learned and mastered this language, he would begin whispering past the veil in an attempt to tempt anyone who would heed him with promises of its legendary powers if they were to resurrect him back into the world of the living. Thus, it would come to pass that a coven of ambitious mages would fall for this deceit and resurrect him into the mortal realms with the hope of using him as a weapon for their trivial conflicts. However, despite managing to draw the warlord's soul into the material realm, Shaunal would hold little to no power as a mere spirit. He would instruct these mages to bind his soul to a dark metal forged in the shape of his old armor. Once bound to his new armor, he would rise up as a juggernaut of hate and death, taking his name from the spirit realm, Mordekaiser. The mages soon found out about their folly when they realized that they could not control Mordekaiser. They screamed his former name in desperation in order to bind him, not knowing that Shaunal no longer existed. He would slay these mages in cold blood, making them his first victims after his return, and transformed them into a giant mace befitting for the king of the dead called Nightfall. A special fact regarding the mace is that it is named after the heavy metal band Nightfall, which is pretty cool. He would then once again resume his conquests, no longer fettered by the limits of mortality immortality. Under his dark rule, generations of families would be tormented and destroyed, with rivers of blood flowing endlessly everywhere he and his army set foot. If his first series of conquests were terrifying, it would seem like child's play in front of what he achieved after his resurrection. Thanks to his necromantic powers, he was able to raise the people he killed into his servitude or transform their souls to suit his purpose, as he did with the creation of Nightfall. His empire would continue expanding, and at the center of it all, he would establish his immortal bastion, which would not only be his sanctum, but also a place full of dark magics and secrets. However, like tyrants, his time would come to an end after he was betrayed by the members of his own inner cabal, led by an individual named LeBlanc, who had joined forces with the nearby Noxie tribes. They would separate his spirit from his armor, banish it into the spirit realm, and seal the armor in a hidden place. These people would go on to establish the Empire of Noxus for Hales and Bessa Medrada, who we meet in Season 2 of Arcane. Their principle of strength, vision, might, and guile would unconsciously be inspired by Mordekaiser's own motto of destiny, domination, and deceit. Mordekaiser's second death, if you could even call it that, would be, however, a part of a much grander plan, and all that want and killing over several generations would also actually have a much deeper and darker purpose. As his motto states, destiny was an important part of Mordekaiser's philosophy. If in life he believed that his destiny was to carve himself a place at the tables of the gods, after his resurrection he believed he was destined to a far greater thing than this. It would be revealed that he had corrupted a portion of the spirit realm Mitnarachnin, which served as a base of operation only accessible to him, along with holding the soul of every single living creature he had ever killed during his time in the mortal realm. The mightiest of these souls would become a part of his army of the damned, while the others would be repurposed to form arms and armaments along with weapons. With his destiny now in his hand, he makes the occasional foray into the material realm to harvest more souls and increase his influence. Though at this moment he had not been able to return permanently to the material world, LeBlanc and his former allies know that it is only a matter of time until the Dread Lord, the one they call They Slew and Thrice Reborn, finds a way. When that happens, nothing will stand in his way, as the Lord of the Dead will ride forth with an intent to extinguish every life on this planet to fulfill his ambitions. Atrox, the World Ender. For the next person on our list, we have another ancient being, but unlike Mordekaiser, this one was anything but evil, at least in the very beginning. Once again, we must travel back in time to the period when the great desert kingdom of Shurima was at its absolute zenith. Atrox was a young man who, by the machinations of the sun disk, was blessed with the power of a now-forgotten celestial ideal and was reborn as an ascended one, a protector of his realm. He dedicated his blade towards the pursuit of one righteous cause after another, and protecting the realm and its people against all their enemies with honor and dignity. His wings were a shining beacon of hope of all of Shurima, including his fellow god warriors. Atrox could be found championing every noble conflict at the very forefront of a battle. When the neighboring vassal state of Ikathia rebelled against their Shurima masters after several millenniums of servitude, he would answer the call of his leader, the ascended hero Setaka, to fight the rebels. Even the Ikathians doomed everyone by unleashing the void, and Atrox would fight tooth and nail against all odds, even as his comrades fell around him until the every last void fissure was sealed. However, just like all of the Ascended who survived this war against the void, he would have something taken from him as well and would never be the same. He would be forever haunted by nightmares of this war, aiding his descent into a darkened later. After the death of the final Shurima Emperor Azir, Atrox and his other fellow Ascended were left leaderless. As the once mighty kingdom began to fall into decay, so did Atrox and the remaining Ascended. The once mighty god warrior, who was the epitome of everything noble, began to fall into darkness as his kind began fighting amongst each other. They would earn the moniker of Darkened, a Shuriman mad word that loosely translated to the Fallen, from the mortals who fled into the wake of the devastation they were causing. Such was the scale of their war against each other that only with the intervention of the Targonian celestial beings like the aspect of war, Pantheon, and the aspect of Twilight, Misha, could the mortal being rally together equipped with the knowledge to imprison the Darkened within their own weapons. Atrox, not realizing what was afoot, would challenge the aspects of their armies with his own forces in combat, but would eventually be bested, realizing too late that he had been deceived. Pulled by what is described as a gravity greater than that of 1,000 dead stars, his immortal essence would be forever bound to his trusted sword, trapping him for all eternity. There, he would spend countless years trapped within darkness, his essence suffocated and denied even the sweet release of death. He would try desperately to escape his prison, but to no avail until one day a desperate soldier would wield him in order to fend off his attackers. Atrox would use blood magic to take over this individual's body and transform it to resemble what he looked like before his entrapment. He would then go on and slaughter every living creature within his vicinity indiscriminately, hoping to build a body that could handle his vast powers. Over the years, Atrox has had numerous hosts, many of those whose essence he fed on to make himself stronger to break free from his bonds. However, the riddle of his imprisonment remained unsolved, with him being nowhere close to the answer even after countless attempts. Soon, even the flesh he stole from his hosts just felt like a mere extension of his prison, and he came to the inevitable conclusion that there was no way for him to ever be free. Despair finally set in on Atrox, driving him even more mad. Even the tiniest vestiges of the noble god warrior was no more, completely overshadowed by an almost unrecognizable being filled with wrath and hate. In his desperation to rid himself of his predicament while also being filled with a sense of injustice and hatred, he decided to go down the path of nihilism. Atrox now believes that if he can somehow cause the end of all creation, by virtue of this, everything ending his imprisonment would end as well. Thus, he marches on towards his goal, spreading death and destruction wherever he is, spilling rivers of blood indiscriminately, hoping to trigger an event that will catapult all of existence into oblivion. His journey from a mortal man to a shiny godlike being of hope and nobility, followed by his epic fall from grace to one of the vilest and most evil creatures responsible for the death and destruction of countless beings, is one of tragedy and horror.
Going somewhere?
Thresh the Torturer. Evil can sprout from the unlikeliest of places. It doesn't necessarily have to be born from a place of terror and misery. Such was the case with Thresh, the Wraith of the Shadow Isles, a creature who was evil long before his transformation into the vile undead that he now is. He was once a human known as Urlock Grail, a monk of the Brotherhood of Dusk in the Blessed Isles. Urlock served within the Blessed Realm, hoping to one day be rewarded for his hard work as one of the masters of Helya. Unfortunately for him, he would not be granted the high and important roles that he felt were his right and destiny, the reasons of which vary according to the sources you choose to believe. Urlock believed it to be due to his low birth that he was being discriminated against. On the other hand, it is said that he was a man of narcissistic and arrogant bearing, and it was this flawed character of his that stopped his promotions. He was relegated to safekeeping the various magical artifacts housed in Helya, which was no small task as these items were extremely important and powerful. However, in his eyes, this was an insult that he blamed for his growing resentment and hatred towards all of his peers. He would even arrange for the murder of his superior head warden Rastafir, after he was reprimanded for keeping a nameless tome suspected to contain forbidden sorcery for himself from the artifacts he guarded. Consumed by his hatred and narcissism, he believed that the head warden wanted the tome for himself and intended to steal his research. Years of harboring such negative emotions towards his comrades had turned him into a bitter and hateful man, if he wasn't one already. Fate would smile upon him and present Urlock a grand chance to have his revenge on all those he believed had kept him from his rightful place and destiny. Driven mad by grief after the death of his wife, Isolde, the king of Camabor, a country on the eastern continent of Runeterra, would attack the Blessed Isle in search of the waters of life. The king, whose name was Vigo, would massacre the inhabitants of the island and would be led to the waters by Thresh himself, who took great pleasure in the slaughter, feeling himself vindicated after years. However, due to an unforeseen event during the resurrection process caused by the clash of magic, the Blessed Isles would shatter with the mist that protected the isles, turning it into the Black Mist. This event was known as the Ruination, and all those who were caught in the blast were turned into wraiths. Urlock, however, reveled in his new form, finding freedom in the fact that he was no longer bound by his humanity. He embraced his cruel and sadistic nature, which was reflected in his form that now resembled that of a true monster. He dropped his human name, Urlock Grail, and began going by Thresh. Now an abominable undead, he began roaming the lands of Runeterra, especially after becoming unbound, slaying all those across his path and storing their souls in his lantern for him to mock and torment them for all eternity. While the Black Mist completely erodes the original personality of his victim, leaving in its place only a wraith filled with negative emotions, when it comes to Thresh, we can safely say that his cruelty and sadistic nature has nothing to do with the mist but are innate. He loves antagonizing and playing around with not just his victims trapped in his lantern, but also their loved ones, deriving a sick sort of pleasure from it. While not the most powerful individual on this list, Thresh is undoubtedly one of the cruelest and vile characters to ever plague the realm of Runeterra. Singed, the Mad Chemist. Not many remember where the exact moment the madness set in, but everyone knows that Singed, the mad scientist, has left a trail of misery and death in his pursuit of knowledge and perfection for a number of years now. He was once an ordinary human being who belonged to the undercity of Piltover. Ordinarily, being a loosely termed word even as a child, Singed displayed intense intellect that would be considered prodigious. He had a natural curiosity regarding the nature of things, and one could see from his early days that he had a fire inside him to discover and uncover the mysteries of the world. What people did not know was how far he would go in his pursuit of knowledge. His love for the principles that governed the natural along with his apparent genius quickly led him to be discovered and admitted into the University of Piltover. It was not long before Singed was making one groundbreaking discovery after another. He was pushing the boundaries of his field like it had never been done before. However, his work would garner no recognition from his peers or the citizens of Piltover, as their attention had already been captivated by Hextech, which combined the use of magic and technology, allowing for an everyday person to use magic. Hextech was transformative to society as it revolutionized travel, commerce, productivity, and even weaponry. In its space, Singed's work was not only ignored but also ridiculed. He hated Hextech and what it stood for, and he believed magic to be a crutch that only the weak relied on. Singed was vocal about, too, criticizing this new advancement with what chance he got. He began delving into alchemy, and despite once again making several important contributions, Singed was largely ignored and ridiculed. As Hextech's stars shone brighter, Singed's research was pushed to the periphery, and inevitably his funds began to dwindle as well. With no means to continue his research, he was forced to leave the university and move to Zon. In Zon, his work would finally gather steam as there would be a great demand for his talents in the budding chemtech industry. His clientele would feature mostly unscrupulous characters who would seek to employ him to create things to serve their nefarious purposes. As such, his experiments would begin involving inhumane practices that would lack any ethics. He would become an expert at experiments that involved the augmentation of humans and animals, along with splicing the genetic material of both, resulting in the creation of abominations and monsters. His primary employer would be the criminal known as Silco, under whom he would perfect the alchemical drug Shimmer. This purple liquid has many properties, including healing, physical augmentation, and mutation. The downside to it is that the substance is highly toxic and addictive. Singed is seen using it for a number of experiments, while the denizens of Zon use it as a party drug. An example of one of his most heinous experiments was the creation of the monster known as Warwick. With the Arcane series heavily leaning towards the real identity of Warwick being Vander, from what we know already from the lore, he subjected the former freedom fighter to some of the most horrifying acts. Having already lost his mind by this time, Singed put this individual through unimaginable torture by augmenting chemtech upgrades and chemical toxins in him while he was fully conscious. The mad scientist had developed a twisted philosophy according to which he believed only through pain could real immortality be achieved. Warwick would, however, turn against his creator and escape. Another known example of his cruelty is when he kidnaps the two men, Hadri and Paolo, and puts them together through cruel experiments in an attempt to link their minds together. The two individuals lost their lives in a cruel fashion, but not until it was revealed to them that they were just another name in a long line of victims. If not already clear, Singed is a serial killer who viewed individuals as mere tools to further his knowledge. For him, everyone is a lesser being whom he is perfecting through his experiments, and if they die in the process, the only emotion he feels is disappointment, not out of empathy, but for the failure of his experiment. Now with Silco dead and no one and nothing to restrain him, Singed has fully embraced his diabolical side in the name of science. Jin, the Golden Demon. If Singed used science as an excuse to fulfill his psychotic tendencies, this individual that we're talking about fancied himself as an artist. Jin was the son of an Ionian martial arts master whose family faced rapid decline due to the surge in popularity of a rival style called Wuju. No one knows when the killing started, but what we do know is that Jin began slaughtering entire farmsteads and travelers, regularly building himself up a reputation. Nobody could believe that such murder and the aftermath of it was was all the work of a mere mortal. Tales of a cruel spirit called the Golden Demon and its banishment are still told in every household of Ionia to this day, with almost only a select few knowing that this demon was no spirit but a man of flesh and blood. In desperation, the ruling council of Zion, the province that Jin had terrorized through his so-called art, called upon the great master Kusho in order to banish this evil spirit. So it was that Kusho, along with his son Shen and his apprentice Zed, made their way to Zion to rid the province of their tormentor. Along the way, the trio was shocked at the number of devastated families that they met. They began their investigation immediately, but despite their best efforts, Jin continued to elude them for the next 4 years. At the end of the 4 years, Kusho concluded, having inspected all the clues and put together a pattern, that they were not, in fact, dealing with a spirit or a demon, but a supremely cunning and evil human being. Despite the fact that the order that they belonged to specialized in the hunting of spirits, the three became too invested in this case and resolved to see it through. They would lay out an elaborate trap during which Zed almost takes Jin's life, but is prevented from doing so by his master, who believes that they have already crossed their remit by pursuing this case. Further, he believed that if the Golden Demon was found out to be a human, it would break the spiritual harmony of the nation and might even sprout other copycat killers like him. So it was that Kata Jin was put inside the prison monastery of Tula, where he remained until the first invasion of Ionia by Noxus. During his time in the monastery, the monks described him as a very intelligent student who quickly picked up on all they could teach him. They would, however, not going to be able to cure his strange need to shed blood and fashion the bodies of his victims in a macabre display. He would be freed by unknown characters to be weaponized against their foes. It is suspected that his current patrons include the Kashori Armories, Navari Brotherhood, Noxus, and even Zon. With the unlimited funds thanks to the backing of his patrons and the scale of his performances are increasingly growing more and more bloody, with this psycho on the loose, no one is safe in Runeterra, as there is no guarantee where his gun will turn to next. Marvel's verdict. The world of Runeterra is filled with villainous characters, but not all of them are as vile and evil as the ones mentioned here. Many of those characters are of a morally gray nature and do not take any particular joy in destroying and taking life. That is not to say that there aren't any more of these chaotic evil characters than the ones we've mentioned here. We could fill this list with every darkened and void creature that we know of, but have chosen not to do so, since we're focusing on what we thought were the 5 worst offenders in Runeterra. If you liked this video and it piqued your interest and you want us to cover the remaining evil incarnates in this universe, do like and share this video. With the second season of Arcane slowly incorporating the greater lore of Runeterra into the story, we aim to keep you up to date with all there is to know all about it. For now, though, we have come to the end of this video. Do tell us if you would like us to do more Arcane Runeterra related videos in the future in our comments section. Also, be sure to tell us who your top 5 most evil individuals are in this universe. Thank you for sticking with us right to the end, and we hope to see you soon. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, be safe. Thanks, everyone.